Welcome to this edition of the eClinicalWorks podcast. I'm Adam Silati. Now, more than ever, practices are looking to grow their business. Growth has become an increasingly critical strategy that supports the ability to offer services now and in the future, as well as to build resilience in the face of external pressures like inflation and industry consolidation. But it isn't sufficient to have intention. To achieve growth, practices must also know where to look for opportunities, how to move the needle, and whether their efforts are making an impact. Fortunately, eClinicalWorks comes standard with the appropriately named Practice Growth Management Dashboard. And on today's episode, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at part of the PGM dashboard with the help of Cyril Thomas. Cyril, thanks so much for taking the time to be here today.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
So Cyril, let's get started with the obvious question. What is the Practice Growth Management Dashboard, and why should practices pay attention to it?
The Practice Growth Dashboard is a module offered to all eClinicalWorks clients that identifies business areas for growth and improvement. It also measures the entire practice on a collection of KPIs that we have found to be indicators of the practice's health and ability to grow. And so I want to take this opportunity to share my screen and show you the dashboard. And I want to give a shout out to the whole entire eClinicalWorks team that has developed this. This has been a game-changing feature, especially for us that go on site or work remotely with clients, because it has an analysis of KPIs that are kind of broken up into different sections. So we have front office KPI, which is broken up into cancel visit, no-show, and upfront collected visits. We have mid-office KPI, which is broken up into completion lag and patient growth rate. And then we have the back office, which is broken up into days in AR, clean claims, claim creation lag, claim submission lag, and paper statements to electronic statements.
Well, Cyril, there's a lot to absorb there on that dashboard. Clearly, we can't get into all of it right now, but where is one place that practices could focus on first? What would you recommend?
So let's take a deeper dive into the upfront collected visits. So I'm going to uncheck the back office, uncheck the mid office, and just focus on upfront collected visits. And this is important because it helps the practice to have lower accumulated patient balances, which also means that they don't have to send these balances to collections or write them up. So if you look at this dashboard here, we can see that at this hypothetical practice, in the month of September of 2021, this practice had 2,315 billable visits, and they collected $25,600 from 675 visits. And that's a 29% ratio. And if you look at the month or two before that, they had an increase of 2,515 billable visits. They collected $24,686 from 660 visits.
Excellent. So we can see the trend there over time. We don't just know where we are today, but this also helps me see how that pattern is evolving and changing. You're showing here, on these various months, the collection percentage rate, anywhere from 26% to 29%. What is a good rate? And how do practices know if they're falling behind in a given metric?
So ideally, we should try to strive for 100%. We can take it back and at least try to aim for 50%. And we can kind of see that the practice can kind of see how they're comparing themselves to other practices in the area. So again, we can look at their overall average of 29% for this practice. They can then compare themselves to other practices in the state of Massachusetts where this practice is located. And we can also compare themselves to other practices in their size. So this is a 12-doctor provider practice. And they can see that for other providers, for the 10 to 90 provider group, the best is 45% and the average is 35%. So there's definitely some room for improvement. Now, what's good about this is that this is kind of the benchmarking feature, and we do require consent for this process.
And what's the purpose behind that consent, Cyril? Why are we requiring that?
Data is anonymized, so it's not like we're sharing the practice data and things like that. And the practice can basically compare themselves to other practices in the area.
Well, it's certainly a powerful tool. We do get that request a lot from practices. How do I stack up? Where is the benchmarking? And this is a great place to see that that's happening there, so that practices know if they're able to grow at that same rate as the practices in their area. So, Cyril, we see a couple of things here that tell me where I stand today as a practice, but what am I supposed to do about it? How am I supposed to improve, in this case, my upfront collections and support that growth that we're talking about?
So that's a great question, Adam. And the best thing about the dashboard is it does tell you features that can actually help you improve your upfront collection visits. And so we're going to focus here on the first feature, which is healow payment services. And this has been a game-changing feature for a lot of practice business. It's basically e-payments on steroids. It allows the patient to get a text or an email of their patient balance, which they can pay And that money would post in your bank account, would also post in eClinicalWorks and your under billing band payments. And the patient also gets confirmation that they made a payment. So, and I also want to highlight a practice that they had the PGM dashboard deployed. They saw that their collections were low. And when they implemented Helo Pay, just in the following month, they saw an increase of $8,000. And they saw an increase of 20% of patient payments just in the first month of implementing Helo Pay. If you also look at other features, we can look at eCheck-In. And eCheck-In is a free feature, provided that you're using eClinicalWorks Messenger. And this allows the patient to update their demographics from basically anywhere, other from the comfort of their own home or their car or the parking lot. They can also sign consent forms, fill out questionnaires, update their med list. But best of all, we can also add in the copay feature and prior downs so that patient can be prompted to pay the copay. So sometimes the front desk might forget to ask the patient to pay the copay. This way, there's an automatic text that goes out to the patient where they can pay the copay. And then lastly, we have eligibility. And eligibility is a basic feature that we have had for a long time. And this is a great feature because it tells the practice automatically what the patient's copay based on their insurance. And this eligibility can be run overnight through a job, or we can also run it on demand if you have a same-day visit.
Absolutely. Practices need to focus on those fundamentals. Like you're saying, that eligibility check-in gives them a lot of information. And like you said, it can be run automatically overnight so that they don't have to worry about that. And then it's great to hear the impact that those Helo payment services have had. Wow, 20% increase in upfront collections in a single month. I mean, that's a huge increase, I think, for any practice. So Cyril, what has been the reaction? I mean, you've been talking with customers about this dashboard for a couple months now. And what's the reaction been when you show them their own information using this utility?
So this has been eye-opening for a lot of practices. A lot of practices have been asking for this dashboard when I show them the data. And the best of all, this dashboard is free of charge. And it's eye-opening, and it's also eye-opening because they may not believe what they are seeing. I had one practice, they had 54 days in AR, which was a high number for them. I also had another practice of mine that had their chart completion, their provider productivity chart completion was over 15 days, when that should be around 3 days. And I had another practice that their claim completion was over 16 days. So with any KPI we have, whether it's front office, mid office, or back office, we do tell kind of the solutions that can help them improve those numbers.
Yeah, that's great information to know, Cyril. You know, I know we're talking about other metrics besides this upfront collections here, but I think, like you said, to be able to see your own information. I mean, it's all very easy for us to think, oh yeah, well, we're doing great. We're in great shape. But then when we see the information, we're presented with that information, it can be, kind of surprising where we actually stand with that information. This puts that into their own hands. And I think the other interesting thing to note about some of these metrics, Cyril, is that whether practices are doing their own billing or whether they're working with, an outside company, having this information in front of them, I think really helps them to be a better partner with those services or people that they're working with, so that they can be better informed, they can ask better questions, and they can, trust but verify what's going on in their practice. So Cyril, with all of the benefits that we're seeing here, how are practices going to access this dashboard? And once they have it enabled, how are they going to find information to get help getting started?
So the first thing that the practice should do is they should open up a case with the eClinicalWorks and they can request for the practice growth dashboard. You can also email a bizdev.demo@eClinicalWorks.com if you need a private demo of the dashboard. And best of all, this dashboard is free of charge. The practice can also search for practice growth dashboard on the support portal. And there's also a video which kind of goes into a little more deeper dive, as well as the user guide is available. And once you get the case enabled, we do need a consent form to be signed. Again, that provides the whole powerful tool of the benchmarking. So that would, once you sign that, we just get that deployed for you, and you should be able to have this running in your EBO folder.
Excellent, Cyril. Well, it sounds very easy. So as Cyril said, log a case or go on to my.eClinicalWorks and check for practice growth. So use that in the search bar up at the top right of my.eClinicalWorks, and you'll find lots of information. Cyril, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and show us a little bit about what this dashboard is and what it can do for the practices.
Thanks, Adam, for having me. Have a good day.
Well, there's certainly a lot more to learn about the Practice Growth Management Dashboard and the things it can do for you. Keep in mind, as Cyril said, there are documents available on my.eClinicalWorks.com. Just search for Practice Growth in that search bar up there, or log a case, and somebody can help walk you through this dashboard with your own information in your own system. It can be very eye-opening, as Cyril said. Also, don't forget to check out our other podcast episodes on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or my.eClinicalWorks.com. And if you've liked the type of information we've been talking about here on the podcast, don't forget to like the information and subscribe to the information as well, and share it with anybody that you think might find it beneficial. For the eClinicalWorks podcast, I'm Adam Salati, and thanks for watching.